Welcome to this ICCEE Lunch Seminar. Today, Deger Sagan is going to present about the ICCEE Horizon 2020 funded project about food and beverage cold chain energy efficiency. Deger?
Thank you, Marin. So, thank you all for joining the lunch seminar. I'll be giving you a short update on the ICCEE project, which we started in September 2019. So we made some progress, and as the ICP, we are supporting the project coordinator, the Brescia University from Italy, as quality manager, but also responsible for the national actions, in particular the training, and also quite doing some heavy lifting on the training part. So I won't repeat too much of the fundamentals, as you may recall from previous presentations what the ICCEE project is about. We focus on the SMEs and the food and beverage sector, but it's not per se a focus on the processing side of food and beverage, but it goes to the mid and upstream of the food and beverage supply, and particularly the cold chain. And as you know, the food supply security has become a more emerging issue during the COVID period. Maybe less for the EU, but for many other countries, and especially in the wake of the vaccination news at the end of last year, cold chains in particular. So it's going to become a more important subject in the coming years, I expect. The project builds on two pillars. There is one focus on the tool side, which I'll pay some attention in the coming slides. Where we developed analytical tools to estimate the environmental energy impacts of the cold supply chain for different types of products. And the other pillar is the capacity building program, which is actually at the both national and the EU level. So that's interesting. There's pretty much all countries are being aimed at of the member states of the EU to engage to this work, building on the local action. And as the ICP, we are responsible for the Netherlands, but also focusing on the Belgium side of it also. Now, in steps building on these two pillars, as I mentioned, the tool development is a crucial part, and we spent pretty much the first half of the project, so 18 months, that's a sizable amount in terms of the tool development and the validation of these tools. There's 7 of them, so we have a toolbox actually, not just a tool. And I'll tell what that box includes. And the second half of the project will focus more on the capacity building activities. And we already started with that at the end of last year. And finally, some exploitation of the findings from this work. As I mentioned, this is a more private sector focused work, mainly the SMEs. And the idea is to create a culture in the companies of the cold supply chain of the food sector, to make sure energy experts are aware of the non-energy benefits of energy efficiency, but obviously of its also energy benefits. And given that such culture does not exist at all in such companies, to engage and create buy-in with the non-energy experts, so they are also aware of what they can gain from improving energy efficiency, and of course how that impacts the entire supply chain. If you do something on transport of the transport stage of the food supply chain, how that impacts other parts. Now we are on month 16, of course, so that's roughly half of the total planned time for this project. And we were more or less on time with respect to deliverables. Much of that was confidential, involving some management-related deliverables, which we are all familiar with. But we despite the COVID period, we were aligned more or less with the timeline of the project. There's one bit which requires more attention, the industry informative network, and I'll come to that later, but more or less on track. And also 2 conference papers so far based on the project results have been released, with one of them contributed from the ICP as well. I'll talk a little bit about the dissemination activities before I pay attention to the to tools and the capacity building. And Marine has been taking the lead there, and I think it was an impressive work done by her. And it's a summary of her efforts, and this is the first year results. We paid much effort to a persuasive communication. As you can imagine, the topic is a little bit sometimes complicated or complex to put on the table and create buy-in by different stakeholders. So that was the first part of our effort. And then with various dissemination platforms and tools we made use of throughout the project in the first 12 months, we tried to inform what this whole effort is during the 3 years of the ICCEE. And finally, the industry informative network platform, which actually combines everything in one go on our web page. It will come online soon. And that's the crucial component of dissemination. Obviously, we have the we've done the traditional corporate design for the project and the social media accounts and so on and so forth. I have to say it was quite successful, much more than we anticipated initially in terms of the engagement of the partners, the number of stakeholders following us, and also the number of impressions we have reached throughout the project. Of course, we used newsletters as a crucial tool to disseminate anything we had, and also like this launch seminar, which we used also as a tool to inform the EU-wide stakeholders. And all in all, through the dissemination activities, more than 1,500 stakeholders from different countries and sectors have been engaged. And the dissemination activities include a suite of platforms, physical meetings. Of course, that was a bit more than a year ago, but also seminars, webinars we've done with the support of various partners. And I'll explain that in a little bit. We've also had interviews with partner countries about the non-energy benefits, not only in the member states, but also outside countries which work with food and beverage sector intensively and are linked with the EU to engage them to the project. So quite a bit of stakeholders were informed on the work, and some news items covered us in different languages, and also with the key projects which work on SMEs energy efficiency, not necessarily on the food sector, but other sectors have been engaged. The contractors meeting at the last quarter of last year was important for that, which we attended as the ICCEE, but also the DSMA project, and we used that as an opportunity. Now, of course, some more activities. Countries are now at the moment, and as the Dutch side, we are also focusing on the training activities. I'll give more information on that. Martijn is helping us kindly there, and also some other local events where we are able to inject the ICCEE messages to the stakeholders are being planned. So this was more the last part of the project, Work Package 5, but on Work Package 2, which is finalized already, the idea was to create this all stakeholder engagement to the project. And there we used the non-energy benefits of energy efficiency and how that is being perceived by organizations and the experts within the organizations as the communication vessel, to say so. And we have carried out interviews through phone and in person over a period of 2-3 months with more than 60 participants across 11 countries. And we also carried out quite a detailed survey with up to 200 participants till summer last year, where we looked at the importance of the non-energy benefits in terms of understanding whether measures actually contribute to that, their role in the energy efficiency of the coal supply chain, and the structure of the coal supply chain in the food industry. Because as such, when we started the project, we had an idea, but we really wanted to test whether that idea is actually being reflected in reality. And also we looked into the behavior organizational aspects of the companies. Some observations, and there's actually a good paper on this already, the report is out, but as you may imagine, the coal supply chain is quite heterogeneous in terms of the size, number of companies, how they're actually linked, etc. Also some key things, of course, I won't repeat everything here. There are some, how do you say, sector associations, industry associations which involve the coal supply chain, so they play a crucial role to put together companies, but also not all of them are prioritizing energy efficiency per se, as you can imagine. So that was an important outcome. There are different results behind the perception of the non-energy benefits of energy efficiency. For instance, the companies having difficulty in determining the benefits of energy efficiency measures. I think we all know that, but this was once more pronounced here. And also there are several outcomes that help to overcome behavioral barriers, financial issues, awareness, data, and also the need for more exchanges are emerging topics. Now, this is a work package 2 outcome, and this is finalized. Now we are focusing on 2 work packages, basically number 3 and number 4. And the third one is quite an effort in terms of tool development. And there are in total 6 tools with the guidance 0 tool covering and summarizing all these 6 tools. We have a coal supply chain tool. This is more really industrial engineering perspective on how the supply chain of the food and beverage sector works in terms of material flows, who are the actors, and so on and so forth. So it's not an analysis of the energy flows, and that part is covered in the second step with the life cycle assessment and the life cycle costing, which is the 4th tool. And the multi-criteria analysis tool is interesting because it combines the different energy and other utility consumption of the coal supply chain into a single score, which could be important, not for all, but perhaps important for some of the SMEs. And based on what we have assessed in the work package 2, which I just introduced you on the non-energy benefits, we have a benchmarking tool. So this is more helping the companies in terms of their decision making, knowing about the non-energy benefits of energy efficiency measure, what could still be done, how can we improve that, and an evaluation of the non-energy benefits in terms of achieving higher energy efficiency in the sector. Now, all these tools are complete. They've been introduced earlier this week to the partners, and we are at the now stage of validation. So validation means getting some real, or say some reasonable data to be introduced and assessed with these tools to come up with some results. And in a subsequent step, these tools will then be used by more number of companies in terms of as an output of the project to provide them with a better understanding of the importance of energy efficiency. Now some examples from the tools, maybe, I mean, I think we're all familiar with these concepts, but I think the interesting part here is that you pick a food or a beverage product, mainly food, of course, and that can be a frozen vegetable, type of meat, fish, whatever you want, and its size and in terms of kilograms or other functional unit, and then you're able to see until the raw material supplier throughout the cold supply chain its impact, including its transport phase within the EU or outside of the EU through different modes of transport, and how that contributes to the overall energy use of that food product. There is, of course, coming from the supply chain tool, the very first tool, which I mentioned as the industrial engineering aspect, we are also able to assess issues with respect to quality and so on and so forth. Some more inputs on the tool overview. This is from the supply chain tool, and the outcomes of that supply chain tool goes to the, for instance, here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but to the multi-criteria analysis on the left-hand side, and the supply chain tool on the right-hand side also feeds to the LCA, LCC results. So this toolbox is quite well integrated. So you are able to assess from the quality to the energy to the emissions costs of the different energy impacts across your supply chain, what happens with more energy efficiency over your supply chain, and also linking back to the non-energy benefits of energy efficiency based on the survey and interview results. This is work in progress, but as I mentioned, all models have been introduced. Now we are at the validation stage, so that was work package 3. On the work package 4, there are in principle 3 steps. The first one is the e-learning concept, which is opened at the end of last year. And this is based on the Moodle, and it's complementary to the national training workshops, which I will just explain in a bit. It will be open to different engineers, department managers, and energy and non-energy experts of the SMEs to learn about all the information we have developed while we have built the different tools based on the surveys and interviews we've conducted in the previous work packages. So we have now quite a bulk knowledge on the energy use of the sector, energy efficiency measures, why people choose doing so and not doing so, how to assess the energy efficiency from costs and its benefits. So all that information could now be transferred through an e-learning concept or a tool which is online to different stakeholders in their own languages. So it's quite a value added. Obviously, you could argue that some countries are quite advanced, and that is true. That's why we have the option that you can choose different e-learning modules. That could be financing, that could be policy, and that could also be just the basics of the whole energy efficiency. We are also responsible here, and we are on the second row from top, where we are, of course, I mean, the ideal case would be to do this together with the Dutch Sector Association, but we will see how that rolls out. And this e-learning concept will then be applied to a certain number of audience through first workshop. Of course, this won't be physical. We will need to see how that will be organized. More information I can provide on this, but now what we spend most time on are the training programs, and Martijn is helping us here. He's the lead actually here, where we're responsible, which you see on the right-hand side, from 2 to 4 workshops, where we aim to address around 120 audiences. So the content of these training programs is quite dense, I must say. It is ambitious in terms of, for instance, it includes energy system management in companies, to financial analysis of energy efficiency measures, to LCA, LCC, and all these different aspects. But as I just mentioned, we tailor the content to the national experts' knowledge and needs. So what we do in the Dutch case, and we started this, I support here Martijn in the last quarter of last year in 2020, where we have first tested the waters in terms of who would be helping us to organize such event. As such, ICP leading by its own would be a daunting task. So we looked for local partners in terms of sector associations and so on, and what could be of interest, and whether the first initial idea of these trainings of 5 hours in one shot, heavy training in physical terms, now with the current conditions, whether this would be feasible. So we first found out the TVVL, a branch organization for the installation sector that works overall with many sectors, but also food sector. And they are quite willing to engage with us in the co-organization of these trainings. And we also thought of a bit more innovative and relaxed way of giving the trainings in more than one session, and also repeating some trainings, and also really tailoring the content to the Dutch needs, as the Dutch sector is somewhat more advanced than maybe some others in terms of some topics, for instance, the financing and so on and so forth. And of course, as part of the regional responsibility, we also try to engage the Belgians. They have been at the very first stages, especially in survey and interviews, were open. Now we also received some responses, and we will see how that rolls out. But one very also additional good news was on the training capacity we've developed. Flassis will be supporting us there, along with an expert from the ABN AMRO and a former colleague from Utrecht, Lex Roos, expert on LCA tools. He will also be providing assistance. And as I mentioned, by March, we will be delivering these trainings to the intended total audience. So before the April deadline will be done from the Dutch side. And then the following step will be to have EU level trainings where the tools will be introduced. So we are not there yet, that's a coming step, but that's the work package for last step. So e-learning, the national level trainings, and then the EU level. And one last slide, and I'll not take more of your time, is on the Industry Informative Network, the IAN. So the purpose of this is to combine all we've done throughout the project into one platform embedded on the ICCEE webpage. The tools will be available. The background of the tools in terms of the energy efficiency measures, we prepared fact sheets for them. They're all available. So one energy efficiency measure, how that plays out in the food sector, how it impacts what it costs, and so on and so forth, that type of technical knowledge, best practices, all that stuff will be there. The training material will be there, so what I just explained, and also it will engage through some innovative information on technologies, etc., the sector players, stakeholders. So this is in development. This is something we still need to work on a little bit. I mean, I won't go into the details just for the sake of time. It's work in progress at the moment, and we received at the September advisory board meeting quite a good input from the board members on how to make this more tangible and useful for the sector. So this was all from my side on the ICCEE project. Basically, half-year progress report also. So any questions? Happy to answer.
Thanks a lot, Deger. I actually take the privilege of being the presenter to ask you a first question. Very interesting toolbox, and if I understood correctly, so now they will all first be tested by companies who are involved in the project. Do you know if they will then become public? Will we be available to access them as yeah, if I was an SME from an SME.
Yeah, I mean, first we will validate with selection of companies to see whether this works out in the intended way. And subsequently, it will be introduced to more companies, and the trainings at the EU level will allow even more companies to be engaged. And the idea through the IAN will be to make this as accessible as possible to the wider audience.
Thanks a lot. Anyone else with a question for Degar?
Yes, of course. You know me. Thanks, Degar. It was a very interesting and presentation and quite an impressive project. You mentioned several times the issue of non-energy benefits, multiple benefits. And what we know from many projects is that an important aspect on that is the interaction between the different experts from different fields. So did you see already through the activities already done in the project some interactions between the energy expert and the other people involved in the supply chain? I mean, the people dealing with transport and logistics, with quality and so on.
On your question, we have actually a distinction with respect to the answers we received from the individual companies and the cold supply chain in terms of the perception of the non-energy benefits. So the individual organizations, so the food and beverage companies, their understanding of the non-energy benefits is actually 2/3 of them has a clear understanding of the positive effects. When you look at the entire supply chain, that could be a transport company, that could be actually the cold supply chain itself, that could be some processing in between company, the understanding of the non-energy benefit drops significantly, only to 1/3. So I thought this was quite an interesting outcome. And also in the entire across the entire supply chain, also again around 25–30% of the companies said we did not have such effects such as non-energy benefits when we tried to improve energy efficiency. So that was also interesting. So I think there is definitely a clear difference between the food sector as such in the individual companies, and also how that is playing out in the other companies across the cold supply chain. I think that was an interesting outcome from the survey we had.
I will add all links and information below the YouTube video so people can easily access everything Degar mentioned. And thank you for your attention and for watching this recording. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Take care.